Meanwhile, we need to turn our attention to something else. I chuckle. I chuckle because the frothing can already be heard. We know that he wants to froth. He's here now. I know you look forward to it. It's Dr. Roger Givalby, CEO of Fair Money, personal finance and credit expert, joins me now. Dr. Roger, good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
I recognise that when somebody starts a little bit of a diatribe with someone please help me, that we're sort of heading into a what I can only describe as a despair rant. Why do you need some help, Dr. Roger?
I think many people are despairing. I ran a poll yesterday, just before the final vote, and it was Liz, Rishi, Penny, Boris, if they add him as they want to, and I'm not going to vote. And far and away, the largest number of responses were double everybody else. It was 45%, I'm not going to vote. And that's very telling. And I think one of the things that's really frustrating people is the rise in interest rates. And I just want somebody to please explain to me why the Bank of England has raised interest rates at a time when there's no need to curb our spending. We're not overspending, we're underspending. Everybody's giving up things and buying less than they ordinarily would. On top of which, real pay has declined by the fastest amount in 20 years. So we all have less money. And yet the Bank of England announced yesterday that they're going to have their sixth since December rate rise, most likely on the 4th of August, of another 50 basis points, 0.5%. Taking us to 1.75% interest rate when it was 0.1 12 months ago. So
all I know is, Roger, all I know is that, and this is something I've been talking about as well, which is I don't understand the use of interest rates to curb inflation when inflation is not being caused by excess demand. It's as simple as that.
Correct.
It's a very basic economic discussion. The other point is that when you start to have a look at people's mortgages, I think we are heading into some distinct difficulty. I was having a conversation, like people up and down the country. I don't know about you, Roger, but I have a mortgage and I'm forever looking at the deals that I have. I benefited from a particularly good deal a few years ago. I'm now having to consider refixing my mortgage. What has happened to rates is astonishing. Double the amount of money will be coming out of my account for that mortgage. And it might sound as if it hasn't really moved very much. It's only a few percent. Those few percent in number terms are eye-watering, and that will come home to roost for whoever becomes Prime Minister, for whoever becomes Chancellor. I think that until or unless somebody gets a grip of this, we are heading towards economic catastrophe.
Absolutely. I've been talking about this and the mortgages in particular for weeks. 1 to 2% mortgages, that's an average of 1.5, are now going to 3%. That is double. And I have scores of people who've told me that their monthly payments have doubled. Where do the banks get away doing that? There's no legislation possible until September. Nobody's going to do anything about it. They're doing the same thing with bank credit cards. So I want somebody to explain to me why in the middle of cost-push inflation, where inflation is a result of raw materials, not people spending a lot, the bank would raise interest rates. I think the most incredible thing, and I'm amazed that the media has not even mentioned this, they just report it as if raising interest rates is the most obvious and natural thing to do when you have inflation of any kind, which is nonsense. What they don't report is that in 2009, we had a similar situation, James, rising oil prices, other things. The Bank of England sat there with interest at 0.5% and didn't touch it until 2012, saying publicly, let inflation run, because if we start to raise interest rates and squeeze people, we're going to fall into recession and we're never going to get out of it.
And also, those interest rate rises will be in themselves inflationary. Meanwhile, let's talk about Made, Made.com, the online furniture retailer. What are they saying?
Well, I mean, they're simply an example of this, one of many millions. They have slashed their annual sales projections, which triggered a huge drop in their shares. And this is because consumer confidence is worsening and has hit demand for big ticket items like furniture. So I ask again, having actually, James, scoured some university economics textbooks without being able to find any answer for this, how does making it more expensive for Made and other companies to borrow the money they need to run their businesses and for us to get the money to buy their sofas. How does that help us? I guess it's that everything slows down, comes to a standstill, inflation stops because price markers aren't occurring because nobody's buying anything. We then tip over into recession, then we're in real trouble. Surely there are other ways. Why is the public not being told what the options are and why the bank and the government have gone for the option of increased interest rates? So I don't want to have to borrow money to live and buy food, but why make it more expensive? Why double the mortgage on my house? It's crazy.
It is crazy. And look, I mean, this is one of those things that until or unless we get a better economic understanding, I mean, I'm quite surprised Simon's been in touch and says James Max on Talk TV is absolutely right with his opinions. I mean, that doesn't happen very often, Dr. Roger. But I've joined the froth club this morning. I am so infuriated at the ineptitude of those who are in charge, and also the arguments that are coming out of the Bank of England make no sense. They seem and they seem not to be backed by economic either knowledge or judgment. They seem to be driven by this old adage that the only thing that you have to do, if you like, to control inflation is mess around with interest rates, when what we've also seen is this quantitative easing in order to pretend that there isn't a problem. We've just printed more money to pretend that there isn't a problem. Well, guess what? You print more money, it creates a wall of cash, it creates a asset bubble, and that bubble is you know, in terrible trouble.
Well, I think you're usually right about most things, and you're certainly right about this. The situation is ridiculous. And you can see the froth ruining my nice shirt here. Even if I'm the stupid one, and I'm the only person who doesn't understand this, Deloitte, the giant accounting firm, just came out with a survey, James, that UK chief financial officers have just revealed they expect us to slide into recession next year and bring with it, quote, a prolonged period of high inflation, unquote, for years and years to come. So, you know, even if I don't understand it, even if they're right, they're wrong, because according to one of the biggest firms of accountants in the country, they are going to create a terrible situation for us by doing this, by having done it and doing it some more.
I think they are. Dr. Roger, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That's Dr. Roger Givob, CEO of Fair Money, personal finance and credit expert.